Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Tristan Rallings, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1 Joanne Davey. We warmly welcome the family of Private Francis Henry Burgess, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, all beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair.
If you are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of the more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations over more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Francis Henry Burgess. Francis Burgess was born on the 4th of May 1908 in the Melbourne suburb of St Kilda, the youngest son of Robert and Anne Burgess. His father passed away in 1910, leaving Burgess's mother to bring up Francis and his siblings Robert, George, Mary, Edward and Anna. Burgess worked as a boot repairer and at the time of his enlistment was living in South Yarra with his wife Mabel, who he married in 1939, and their young son Brian. Burgess enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 4th of July 1940 in Melbourne. After training at bases at Mount Martha and Darley, he joined the newly formed 2nd 29th Battalion, which formed part of the 27th Brigade of the 8th Australian Division. He trained with his unit at Bathurst, New South Wales, until July 1941, when he sailed with the rest of his division for service in Southeast Asia. At the time of his departure, Australia was not yet at war with Japan, but Australian troops were being sent to Singapore and Malaya to face a likely Japanese attack. In September 1941, Burgess and the 2nd 29th Battalion moved to Segamat on Malay Peninsula, where they continued to train and adjust to the hot and humid tropical conditions. During this period, Burgess was detached to a chemical warfare school where he received specialised training and instruction. He served in the headquarters company. On the 7th of December 1941, Japanese forces attacked Pearl Harbor and invaded Thailand and northern Malaya. In doing so, they declared war on the United States and Great Britain. From their initial landing areas, they rapidly advanced through South Malaya towards the key Allied base at Singapore. In response to the Japanese threat, Burgess and the 2nd 29th were sent to the Muar River to reinforce Indian troops defending against Japanese attacks. In mid-January, they assumed defensive positions. Over the coming days, they faced increasingly heavy air, infantry, mortar and tank attacks. In 7 days, they lost nearly 60% of their strength, killed, wounded or missing. In desperate conditions, the survivors of the fighting on Malaya made their way back to the base at Yong Peng and withdrew to assist in defending Singapore Island. In this chaotic period, Burgess was originally reported missing, but it is now known that he was one of thousands of Allied troops taken prisoner of war by the Japanese following the fall of Singapore on the 15th of February 1942. Burgess spent time in Changi prisoner of war camp and worked on the Thompson Road Work Party. In April 1943, he was assigned to F-Force, a prisoners' working party sent by the Japanese to work on the notorious Thailand-Burma Railway. Conditions on the railway were terrible. The men faced starvation, disease and harsh treatment from prison camp guards. Thousands died. On the 8th of November 1943, while at the Kami Songkurai camp in Thailand, Burgess died of cardiac beriberi, a vitamin B deficiency and malaria. He was 35 years old. He is now buried in the Tanbayuzayat War Cemetery in Myanmar, where more than 3,100 Commonwealth servicemen of the Second World War now lie. His grave reads, "Duty nobly done, ever remembered." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Francis Henry Burgess, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If you are able, please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, We will remember them. Lest we forget,
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.